Hello all and welcome to today's video of parameters in ADF. So today we will be discussing the types of parameters in ADF and how we can create multiple parameters and use it. And we will be seeing what are the use cases of parameters in ADF. Okay. So in the previous videos, we have covered how to create Azure Data Factory, that is ADF, and how to create multiple components of an data factory, how to create integration runtime, and also how to create an Azure keyboard. So all these video links I will be sharing in the description below. So please go through that also. Okay. So let's start with today's video. So parameters are basically, I would say, a set of values that are being passed to some source code or that are being passed to some uh, services. Okay, so that we don't need to hard code our values. Okay, or we don't need to hard code some specific part of code. Okay, so using parameters, we can basically reuse a set of services or a set of code. So if you have worked with any kind of programming language earlier, so you would have experience with the functions in those programming language and the set parameters that we pass in that language. Okay, so it basically helps us to reuse that set of function for multiple scenarios. Okay, so in data factory we have sorry. So in data factory, we have four different parameters. So that are link service parameters, pipeline, data set, and data flow parameters. So in today's video, we will be covering the first three that are link service, pipelines, and data set parameters. Okay. So to demonstrate it, we will directly head back to our data factory. Okay. So first of all, we will be seeing what is a link service parameter. So before going to data factory directly, I would like to explain what are the different levels of parameterization that we can achieve in data factory. Okay, so likewise explained in the previous videos, we basically require to create a link service, then we require to create a data set, and then we use those data sets in our pipelines. Okay, so in the same manner, the parameters are managed. For example, we are having a link service to which a data set is point. Okay, and this data set is basically used in a parameter. Sorry, in a pipeline. Okay, so this is the hierarchy that is maintained. So if we have some parameter in our link service, okay, so that parameter can be passed to that link service through our data set, okay. And if we have some parameter defined in our data set, then that can be passed to that data set using pipeline. So it is, I would say, a top to bottom approach where we can pass the parameters to the required entity from another entity where it is being used. Okay, I hope that is clear. So pipeline can pass parameters to a dataset, and dataset can pass parameters to a link service. Okay, so if you want to pass some link service parameters directly through pipeline, then what we need to do is we need to pass that particular parameter to first of all dataset, and then from dataset we can pass it to a link service. Okay, so let's open our data factory. So in our data factory, I already have one data factory created. Okay, so in this, I will be creating first of all a parameterized link service, then we will be creating a parameterized data set, and then a parameterized pipeline. Okay, so for creating a parameterized link, I would say a link service, I will require to create, I will be creating a SQL database link service. Okay, so basically, how does it help? For example, you are having one SQL server, okay, and in that SQL server, multiple databases are hosted. Okay, so for example, DB1 is there, DB2 is there, and DB3 is there. Okay, so if you want to create link service, then we would require to create link service for each database separately. Okay. Now just imagine if you're working with multiple servers and if you're working with multiple database on that servers, then how hard it will be to manage link service, right? Because if any change in one of the configuration of any database, then we need to change all the link service which are associated with them. Okay, so over here the parameterized link service helps us. So we'll be creating only one link service, and that single link service can be used to connect to all the three databases. Okay, so I already have two database created in my SQL server. So we will demonstrate of how to do or create a parameterized link service. So I will go and select an Azure SQL DB, and in that I will give it as a name as demo service underscore SQL underscore parameters. In the server name section, okay, if I select any server name in which is my subscription. So it will basically in the drop down, I will get to see all the server name that I have in my subscription. And in the drop down, I will be able to see all the database that I have. But if I select the database directly from here, then it will be basically pointing to only one database. Okay, but I don't want values over here. I want parameters. So I will head back to enter manually section. And in the enter manually section, I will basically give the, I would say, a server name, because the server is same for both the database. So we can hard code it. Okay. So I will pass the server name, and in the database name, I need some parameters. So wherever you see this add dynamic content, okay, so this add dynamic content, wherever you see, so that particular field can be parameterized. Okay, so over here you see this add dynamic content, which means this particular field can be parameterized. So I'll click on add dynamic content, and over here I need to pass some parameters. So first of all, I need to define a parameter. So it's just like defining a variable or defining a parameter before passing the values. For example, in Python, if I have some function which is def function one, okay, and over here I have parameter one comma parameter two. Okay, so over here we are defining, or we are telling like, yeah, these are two parameters which will be used inside our code. Okay, so this P1, P2 we are specifying earlier. In the same way, we need to specify the name of parameters that we need to pass to this link service. Okay, so I'll go and click on this plus sign, and I will create a links parameter. So it is always a good practice to basically prefix the parameter name with the entity that it is built on. So I am having a link service parameter, so I will create a prefix it with ls, okay, and then it will be ls underscore. So I need to pass the DB name, so it will be ls underscore DB underscore name. Okay, default value will be blank, type is string. Now I'll select this parameter. So it says link service dot ls underscore db underscore name as the parameter for our database name. Okay. Now in the SQL authentication, I can pass the values for authentication. Over here also you can see it says dynamic content. So I can add parameters over here as well. But for demonstration purpose, I will only pass one parameter as of now, that is the database. Now it says for test connection. Okay. Now what happens if I click on test connection? Because it is not pointing to any database as of now. It asks me for a database name. Okay. So if I give the name as database one and click on OK, so it says testing connection and the connection is successful. Okay. Now if I want to use the same link service for another database, so let's go and add a new database name, the DB2. Click on OK. Now you see it again says connection successful, means we can use same link service to connect to two different database. Okay, let's go and create this particular link service. Okay, now our link service parameters are created. Okay, so we have seen how to create a link service parameter. Now we'll go and create a dataset parameter. Okay, so let's go to the author section, and in the dataset part, I will go and click on create of new dataset, and I want to create a dataset which points to our Azure SQL database only. So I'll select this Azure database, and in Azure SQL database dataset, I would need to select some link service. Okay, so link service is demo ls SQL params. I would ask for the table name. Okay, now I have, for example, two database, so D1 and D2. Okay, so that can be accessed using only one link service. Okay, but when we create a data set over this link service, okay, for example, I want to create a data set and I pass a parameter of D1, for example, database 1. Now this database 1 can have multiple tables. Okay, so which table does this data set needs to refer? Okay, I can either hard code it over here, okay, or either I can pass a parameter that can be a data set parameter. Okay, so I will go. So over here, if I hover it over table name, I don't see any add dynamic content. Okay, sometimes in the UI part it is not visible. Okay, so I will go and create the data set without specifying the table name as of now. So once our data set is created, okay, now I can click on the edit section and then I can pass the table name and schema name dynamically. Okay, so the table name I will keep it as schema I will keep it as DBO, and in the table name I will pass the new parameter, that is a dataset parameter. Okay, now earlier we have created the link service parameter. Okay, that's why it is not visible over here because the scope is only to link service. Now we want to create a dataset parameter, so I'll go and click on the plus sign, ds underscore table underscore name. Okay, now it's a dataset parameters, ds specify dataset table name. Click on save, and let's select it from here. Click on OK. Now you see the table name is parameterized over here. Now over here in our dataset, as I mentioned earlier, the link service parameters can be passed through the dataset it refers. Okay, so you see this link service properties over here are there, and link service parameters are being asked. Okay, so let's preview some data. If I click on preview, it asks me for the ds underscore table underscore name, the dataset table name. So I have a table already created in my db1, that is airlines. Let's see if I'm able to preview data or not. It gives me an error. Now, why this error is there? Because I don't have any link service database name passed. Okay, so it doesn't know which database to refer to. Okay, so I will pass the link service database name over here. The database is name is passed. So now the link service knows which database to connect to. Okay, now when I preview data, okay, so it should give me the required value. So the table name is passed. Now you see we have two values from the airlines table. Now if I want to use the same data set for some different table, I can go and change the name over here in the table name parameter. And now if I click on OK, it gives me data from the different table. Okay, so I've created a data set that is a parameterized data set. Okay, now over here, what you see is I have this lsdb name. I'm passing this link service parameter to the link service. Okay, from the data set. Okay, now what other thing I can do is, for example, I have this link service that is having one parameter that is being referred from a data set that is having one parameter. Okay, this data set is passing value to this parameter of link service. Now, if I want to use this data set in a pipeline, okay, so from the pipeline, I can pass the value to the dataset parameter. Okay. Now, what if I don't want to pass the data or write this the the stilt db1 value directly over here. Okay, if I want to pass it from the pipeline itself, okay, what I will do is I will define one more dataset parameter, okay, and pass the value to that dataset parameter from the pipeline, and then assign this value to the parameter that is present in the link service. Okay, if you see the hierarchy now, we have two parameters in our data set, 1 and 2, and from the pipeline I will be passing both values 1 and 2, and the second value should go to the link service parameter. Okay, so how we can do it, I will add one more parameter at our in our data set. So it should be ls underscore db underscore name. And in the connection section, instead of passing a value directly, I will add the dataset parameter. It says dataset.ls underscore db underscore name. Okay. Now what happens is this dataset parameters is going to the lsdb name, which is a parameter of link service. Okay. So one parameter is sending value to another parameter in link service. Okay. So let's head back and create a demo of how we can copy data from one place to another using these parameterized data sets. So our task will be to basically copy from data from the SQL table to an Azure ADLS container. Okay. So for that, I will create one more data set that will be our Azure Data Lake Storage data set. It will be Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, and it will be CSV. Let's continue. Link service will be, I have a link service created. Now over here it says I need to pass the file path and the file name. Okay, so I need to parameterize this because I need to use single link service only to copy data to two different containers. Okay, so in my uh, storage account, I have two containers, airline data and stock data. So I want the airline table to go to airline data containers and respectively the stock data to go to stock data container. Okay. So I will keep it as parameterized over here. Click on OK. And over here, I can add the parameter to this data set. Okay. So delimited text one is a data set. So I will add a parameter named dataset underscore. This can be our container name and another can be our file name. And I will go and assign these parameters to the container part and the file name part. Now we have our ADLS dataset created. Now let's head back to the pipeline section, create a new pipeline and a new copy activity. In the copy activity, I will basically select a source. Source will be our Azure table. Now you see it is asking for two dataset parameters. Okay, first is the table name, which will be, and second is the database name. Okay, this dataset name, which is a dataset parameter, is being used to assign a value to another parameter, which is the link service parameter. Okay, so I hope it is clear. So I'm passing two parameters from a pipeline to a data set, and which is eventually passed to a link service then. Okay, so the source is configured. I will go and select a sync, which is our ADLS. Over here, it asks me for the file system name and the file name. So I will give it as hyphen data, and a file using which it should be saved as So source is done, sync is done. Now if we click on debug, it will start the copying of data. See, it succeeded. If I'll go back to our container in the airline data section, I can see this airlines.csv file that has been created now. Okay. But now if I want to use the same copy activity for copying another table, okay, which is our box table, and the thing should be another container and another file name box.csv. Let's go and click on debug. Succeeded. So I will again head back to our another container and see the file is created. And yeah, the file is created now. Okay. So this is how you can use same link service, same data set for accessing multiple values. Okay. Now we have discussed about link service parameters and dataset parameters. Now there's one more term that is named as, I would say, pipeline parameters. Okay. So this canvas belongs to this pipeline one. Okay. Over here, I have this parameter section. Okay. So if I want to pass something to this pipeline, okay. So a pipeline can be triggered using another pipeline or using some job. Okay. So we can pass multiple values to that particular pipeline using the pipeline parameter. Okay. For example, in the copy data activity in the source section, I'm passing this DS table name, okay, which is the table name stocks. I'm writing it over here manually. Okay. What if I want to pass it to a pipeline parameter? So click outside and I will refer it as pipeline underscore db underscore table name. Okay. Now I have one pipeline parameter. Okay. So let's go at the copy activity in the source section. I will remove this stocks value over here and add a dynamic content. And you can see this pipeline parameter that I created just now. Just click on OK. Now what happens is this pipeline is having one parameter. Okay. And so we have this link service, we have a data set, and we have a pipeline. Okay. Pipeline is having one parameter. Our source data set is having two, and sync is having two parameters, and link service is having one parameter. Okay. So there's two values in the sync. I'm writing it manually. Okay. Out of these two values, one value I'm writing manually and another value is being fetched through a pipeline parameter. Okay. And in the link service, I'm not writing it manually. The first value that I have written in the data set that is being passed at the link service. Okay. This is the level of parameterization we have created. Okay. So whenever we call this particular pipeline through a job or through another pipeline activity, or let me demonstrate you. Let's create another pipeline. And this pipeline, I will search for execute pipeline activity. Okay. And in the settings tab, I will call the pipeline one, and you will see it is asking me for the PIDB table name. Okay. So now I can pass the value of stocks over here. Now the stocks value will be passed to the pipeline one. Okay. And then it will be used in the source section of here, and the DS table name over here. Okay. So this is how we create pipeline parameters, link service parameters, and dataset parameters. Okay, so that's it for today's video. I hope I'm able to explain you in more clear manner. Okay, do like and subscribe and share the video if you found this helpful. Thank you so much.